You keep on telling me to jump. You keep on telling me to jump, but I'm scared.
Look, I'll just come out and say it because I know a lot of us watching this are thinking it. Yeah, it's a little weird and it's different. Just like this comment says right here, he is dang near unrecognizable and he's lost a ton of weight. In 2010, there was a running back who wasn't just taking over the SEC by storm, he was taking over the entire college football landscape by storm. The crazy part about it is people thought he was going to be really good coming out of high school. He wasn't just a 5-star recruit, he was the #1 running back in the nation. But they didn't think he was going to be this good, this fast. It's extremely rare to see a player's game translate over like this from the high school level to the college level like it did for this young man. There was zero hiccups, obstacles, bumps in the road, whatever you want to call it. He went from dominating high school competition to dominating D1 competition, and not just that, I can't emphasize it enough, SEC competition. I wouldn't go as far as to saying he was a speed demon, but man oh man, he was a bruising running back that went hard and hit you hard 24/7 from quarter 1 to quarter 4. At the time, it looked like this was going to be one of the most legendary running backs we ever witnessed at the college level. He was going to be all over the history books, have a great 10-year career in the NFL, and we was going to talk about him for the next 30, 40, 50 years and so on. However, that didn't happen. What did happen is only a few years later, his career came to a drastic halt. His career ended in one of the worst ways possible, and he's even came out and stated it. It turned his life upside down. When I was gathering all my information for this video and doing all the hours of research, I started thinking to myself, is this guy the biggest what if of all time when it comes to the running back position? I don't know if we'd put him up there at #1, but I'll tell you this much, he certainly has a legit case for a #1 spot. What's also unique about his story and situation is only 8 days ago, somebody wrote this comment right here. The pictures on his Insta are wild. He lost so much mass and grown his hair out, and now he's barely recognizable as his old self. What's happened to him after football is, we'll leave it at this, fascinating to say the least. There's a lot of questions people have been asking about this guy even till this day. But however, it all circles back to the one, and I mean the one big question we're going to try to get to the bottom of in today's video. What really happened to Marcus Lattimore? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, hope all of you are having a great and fantastic day. If not, hope this video can make it a little bit better. And I can't find the comment. I lost it. It was on a video we made a couple weeks ago. But one of you, you know who you are, thank you. You recommended this video. No lie, I probably spent 45 minutes to an hour trying to find the comment. Unfortunately, couldn't, and I gave up on it. You know who you are. I hate that I can't give you credit for recommending this video, but it is what it is. The show must go on. I can't tell you enough how excited I am to get into this video because Marcus Lattimore, he was my childhood. When I was growing up, this was a guy that everybody knew and talked about. And that's what's cool about doing these story videos we do on the channel in the off season, because it's sort of like a glance in the past. You kind of get that nostalgia feeling and vibes when we talk about these players and their stories, and it's cool to see what happened to them. A lot of times though, these story videos, it doesn't turn out well for the players, but sometimes, and here recently, it has turned out good. As always, if you like content like this, consider subscribing to the channel. We're just a bunch of boys and girls that like talking about college football. That's relatively it. We'll talk about some other sports here and there. And also too, almost forgot to throw this in there, if you have any recommendations for story videos, feel free to leave a recommendation or comment down below. We make videos that you guys want to see on this channel. It's as simple as that. Strap in, buckle up, get you a snack, get you a popcorn, get your favorite meal you like to when you watch a video, because trust me, I do the same thing. But alright, Matt, blah, blah, shut the crap up. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. Man, oh man, we got good old Marcus Lattimore. Come on, man. You already know, to get into his story, we got to throw it all the way back to where things started. Mr. Marcus Lattimore grew up in Duncan, South Carolina, where he attended James F. Burns High School. For his high school career, I think it's safe to say he had a pretty decent career there. As a junior in 2008, he was named as the Junior Football Player of the Year. What about that? When it was all said and done for his high school career, he had 5,830 rushing yards and 76 total touchdowns. Not bad if I gotta say so myself. And obviously it goes without being said, every school in the country, they wanted him. He was ranked as the 9th best overall player in the nation, #1 running back, #1 player in South Carolina, 5-star recruit like we already talked about, and had a 99, if you round it up, it's 995, so dang near 100 overall scout grade. This was not one of those situations where he was an underhyped and underrated running back. No. This was a bad man, and everybody in the country, especially these recruiting experts, they knew it. Recruiting process relatively simple, grew up in the state of South Carolina, so it made total sense that he stayed home and committed and signed with no other than South Carolina and the old ball coach. He gets to campus in 2010, and normally for most true freshmen, what happens? A, they either redshirt, or B, if they do play, it is minimal, and I'm talking about minimal action. Well, Marcus Lattimore, I guess he didn't get the whole memo on true freshmen weren't supposed to have an immediate impact because he did just that. In just his second career college football game against Georgia, he had 37 carries for 182 yards and 2 touchdowns. Not too long after that, on October 9th in 2010, y'all remember this, South Carolina and Marcus Lattimore upset #1 Alabama. In that game, he didn't have crazy numbers, but he had 23 carries for 93 yards and 2 touchdowns, and also had a receiving touchdown. He was the workhorse for South Carolina in that 2010 season. When it was all said and done, he had 249 carries with 1,197 rushing yards, averaging right at 5 yards per carry, and 17 touchdowns. I can't emphasize this enough. True freshmen doing that, putting up these numbers in the SEC. You can't understate that, and I'm trying to think here. I don't know if a true freshman ever since 2010 has ever put up those numbers. At this point in time in our story, things were looking great for Lattimore. When that 2010 season came to an end, he was named SEC Freshman of the Year and first team All-SEC as well. Heading into a 2011 season, there was a lot, and I mean a lot of heavy expectations, and you could argue and say there was some pressure on them. In this life, some people, they tend to fold under pressure. Others, they rise to the occasion, and Lattimore, you want to take a guess at what he did? He rose to the occasion. You remember how he torched Georgia in 2010 as a true freshman? Well, he did it again the following season as a sophomore. In similar fashion, in South Carolina's second game against Georgia, Lattimore went off. The quarterback, and I'm going to show you his numbers right here, Garcia, didn't do so well. 11 for 25, that's not good. Only 140 passing yards, 1 touchdown to 2 INTs. However, Lattimore, he made up for that. He had 27 carries with 176 yards and 1 touchdown. At this point in time, it just seemed like Lattimore had Georgia's number, and he loved playing them. The following game after Georgia, he had 246 yards against Navy. As the season continued to progress, Lattimore, he was doing his job. He had a really good season. That was up until the Mississippi State game. You see, this is where Lattimore only had 39 rushing yards. South Carolina did win 14-12, but this was his last game of the season due to an injury. After that game, not too long after, news would come out he would have to miss the remainder of the entire 2011 season due to a ligament he tore in his knee. Goes without being said, devastating blow for multiple different reasons. Reason number 1 is, you hate it for the young man and the kid himself. Reason number 2 is, he was having an unreal season. He was on pace to have right around 1,500 rushing yards. Last but not least, reason number 3 is, huge loss for a South Carolina team. That was a bulk of their offense. If you were to look at the positive in the situation, it wasn't a major knee injury, and he was going to be back by the 2012 season. So that was some good news, and although South Carolina was missing their star player on offense, they finished that 2011 season going 11-2. Not bad at all. That was the same year, correct me if I'm wrong without even looking at it, they destroyed Clemson, their rival, 34-13. Don't ask me why I remember that so vividly. I'll probably pop it up on the screen, but I do. Fast forward time a little bit to the start of our 2012 season. Lattimore, he's ready to go. There were some people that were being skeptical about him, saying, oh, how's he going to respond to the injury? Maybe he's going to be a little slow coming back. It's going to take him a while to get up to game speed. But all those people and all those naysayers, they couldn't have been any more wrong. It appears to seem that somebody forgot to mention to them that Lattimore was a different breed. In his first game back from that knee ligament injury, he had 110 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. He's not having any games where he goes off, as you can see on your screen right here, 110 yards, 40 yards, 85, 85, and 120. Although he didn't go off for a $150, 200 yards and have that one really explosive game, he was having a solid season. Next thing you know, you look up, South Carolina, they're 5-0 heading into the matchup with number 5 Georgia. This was a big time and hyped up matchup because remember, South Carolina, more importantly Lattimore, he had Georgia's number. And yeah, there's not too much to say about the game itself. Georgia forgot to show up to it. They got embarrassed 35-7. South Carolina beat the absolute dog crap out of them, literally no pun intended, and Marcus Lattimore, he had 109 rushing yards in that game. At this point in the year, things couldn't have been too much better. Lattimore, no signs of the injury affecting him. In South Carolina, they're 6-0. Unfortunately, they ran into 2 really good teams right after that Georgia game. Number 9 LSU, who beat them 23-21, and number 2 Florida, who completely curb stomped them 24-11. I mean, not 24, my apologies, 44-11. It's not what happened in the LSU and Florida game that stood out that year. It's what happened in the game after against Tennessee. It's kind of weird. You would think since South Carolina beat Tennessee 38-35 on that night, that would be a really good day for South Carolina. But it turned out to be one of the worst days in South Carolina football history. On that day against Tennessee, Lattimore sustained one of the worst knee injuries in the history of the sport. It was gruesome to say the least. I can't show the video footage, and even if I could, I would not. You know, I'd be sitting up here lying to you guys if I were to tell you I didn't get emotional when I rewatched the video footage that I'm currently looking at right now. I'm not going to show you guys, but I'm looking at just so I get a full understanding of what I'm talking about. It gets me emotional. Maybe it's because I sustained a career-ending injury myself, so I have a lot of empathy towards Marcus Lattimore in the situation, but man, oh man, it is a tough watch. What really gets the waterworks flowing for me is it goes to prove that life isn't fair. It couldn't have happened to a better person. All Marcus Lattimore did was show up every single day, work extremely hard, didn't cause any problems on the field or off the field, and this is what happens to him? Can't tell you enough how much I hate it for him, and I can't tell you enough how much it sucks. I think this comment sums up the best, though. This is on one of the videos on YouTube where he had the injury, and I'll let him take it from here. Don't cry much for anything, really, but what he meant to South Carolina and how much of a humble player he was, this play had me crying. Even opposing teams respected him. That says a lot. Arguably, the saddest part about all of this is when he's being carted off the field, he pulled the Gatorade towel over his head because he was crying. And he wasn't crying because of the pain he was in. He was crying because he knew his career, more than likely, it was over. I have so much empathy and sympathy for him. As an athlete, you're grinding your butt off in the offseason for 5 to 6 months straight just to get into game shape. All the early mornings, all the late nights. And it takes one injury like this for all that to be thrown away. Mentally, it takes a toll on you. It's hard to deal with. Got to take into account, too, this was his second straight season-ending injury back-to-back. And he knew then and there, oh yeah, I'm done this year for sure. There's only 2 words to describe what happened with Marcus Lattimore at South Carolina. It sucks. Period. The end. If he wouldn't have had this injury, I think we're talking about potentially late first round, early second round pick in the draft. And if he didn't have the 2 knee injuries, easily first round pick. He might have been a top 10 or 15 pick. He did wind up having surgery, and in that same season, he declared for the 2013 NFL Draft, which I do agree with. I don't think there was a need to come back to South Carolina for another season in 2013 because he had nothing left to prove at the collegiate level. You also got to understand he's thinking about this. Dang, I just had back-to-back season-ending injuries. 1 more, and nobody's going to draft me. At least if he were to enter the draft when he did, he knew eventually down the road somebody would take a chance on him. And guess what? Somebody did take a chance on him. With the 131st overall pick in the 4th round, the San Francisco 49ers, they selected him. Shortly after in 2013, this is where Lattimore signed a 4-year deal worth up to $2.5 million. He did get $300,000 as a signing bonus, so that's pretty good. But here's where things really get interesting in our story. Lattimore, obviously, duh, he had to get surgery for that knee. The guy who did the surgery for Marcus Lattimore goes by the name of Dr. James Andrews. I'm very familiar with him because him and his team did my surgery when I tore up my knee. They have an institute in Gulf Breeze, Florida, which is close to Pensacola, Florida, if you're around that area, and also Birmingham, Alabama. Dr. Andrews himself is a specialist. He does surgery on all the big-time pro athletes, like, in this case, an example, Lattimore. Well, listen to this. Dr. James Andrews called the destruction inflicted on Lattimore's right knee one of the worst, most complex injuries he'd ever had to operate on. It was so bad, as a matter of fact, that it was stated Lattimore might have a 10% chance of ever walking again. But despite that, there was a lot of confidence, even from Andrews himself, that Marcus would be back. He stated, quote-unquote, Andrews, Marcus would shock the world. And Lattimore himself stated, quote-unquote, this is going to be a great story. I promise you that. So you had both the surgeon and the player believing that he was going to be back. Sadly, as much as it pains me to say this, I don't think Marcus Lattimore understood how much damage he actually did to his knee. I do think he understood the severity of it because he knew he wasn't going to be back to his old self, but I also think he believed he'd be able to play at a high level still, but that just wasn't going to happen. Look at this. Here's what he stated after the 49ers drafted him in an interview. Quote unquote, why would you take a running back with 2 horrible knee injuries? Talking about himself. I share that with you because I want you to understand Marcus, he wasn't delusional. He knew his career, it was probably coming to an end quicker than what he wanted it to. But I think, and this is just my perspective, that Marcus thought he had at least 3 to 4, maybe 5 possibly good years in him left in the NFL. But the crazy part is that didn't even happen. He spent his entire first season on the non-football injury list, and to start the second season, he was still on it. And that's when the doubt, it started to creep in, because that first year after a major injury and major surgery, you're not expecting to come back. You have zero expectations. But by that second year, everybody's like, okay, it's probably time for you to start playing football, but his body was telling him straight up, oh yeah, I'm not ready. And this is when Lattimore, in that second year for the San Francisco 49ers, he knew his career was all but over. This was the exact moment. It was during a practice, a meaningless practice, and the scout team, they were doing a kickoff. Just typical, normal kickoff coverage stuff you work on all the time. Lattimore himself was on the coverage unit, and he ran as fast as he could down the field after they kicked the ball off, and he noticed an offensive lineman that goes by the name of Joe Staley outran him. That was when he knew it was over with. It feels like I've said this word at least 12 or 13 times by this point in the video. That's sad. It's not sad because the offensive lineman outran him. The Joe Staley dude, he's irrelevant in all this. It's sad because at one point in time, this guy was at the top of the game. He was the guy, SEC first team, and only a couple years later, he's slower than an offensive lineman. That's when he knew he had to hang it up, not because he wanted to, but because he was living in reality. He knew he didn't have the juice anymore. I think a good example here is if you ever seen the movie Cars. We've all seen that movie, right? Doc Hudson, he didn't retire because he wanted to. He couldn't compete at a high level anymore. I haven't even seen the newer movies, but the past couple years on Twitter, there's been a meme going around where Lightning McQueen, he's going as fast as he can, and there's these 2 other race cars that are barely even trying that blow past him, and Lightning McQueen is going as hard as he can, and he can't catch them. That's what happened here. Can't tell you enough how much I hate it for him. Officially, on November 5th in 2014, this is when Lattimore retired from the NFL. And this really hit home with me. His last official game anywhere on the football field was against Tennessee in 2012. That was his last memory of playing football in live game action, that injury. With all that bad stuff being said, his story isn't even close to being over with. We still got a long ways to go. Not too long after he retired in 2015, he reunited with South Carolina, and he was helping the players on the field. He technically wasn't labeled as a coach, so the NCAA, they had a problem with this. In 2016, the NCAA stated that South Carolina gained a quote-unquote unfair advantage in recruiting by hiring Lattimore. And we know how the NCAA is. They can be a little, let's just say, bogus at times. But Lattimore, and maybe this is just the type of guy he is, he agreed with them and he went elsewhere with his career. He would help some other teams as a high school coach here and there, was even named a head coach in 2016. But in 2018, this is when he rejoined Will Muschamp at South Carolina again for the second time. This is when he had the official job title of Director of Player Development. A couple years after that, in 2020, he would lead that position and be the running backs coach at Lewis and Clark College. Yes, that's a college. No, it's not people. I'm going to say it again. Lewis and Clark College. I don't expect many of you to even know what kind of college that is because I didn't know myself. To dumb this down here, it's a very, 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 and I mean a very small college. Here's what Marcus had to say about how everything went after retiring in 2014. The pressure just kept building every year. More pressure, and even when I retired, I still felt pressure to be something, to be this person for everybody. I was so focused on how people viewed me, and people viewed me as this hero. I had to put on a cape every day. And this when he became a Christian, he stated, "Rarely did I come across people who said they were Christian, but also talked and walked like one." In other terms here, he didn't just want to talk the talk, he wanted to walk the walk. Not too long after being the running backs coach for Lewis and Clark College, which is D3 by the way, he is now the Director of Personnel and Player Development. To go on top of that, he has a real serious passion for writing poetry and also speaking and mentoring others. And from what I've heard, I don't know this to be true, but Lattimore is trying to get out of football and he wants to be a writer and do all this other stuff full time. And if you go to his Instagram, his bio has nothing to do with Lewis and Clark College. All it says is writer. So obviously, kind of put two and two together here, get the sense and vibes that, yeah, that's what he wants to do now. I looked at his Twitter as well, and it is nothing dating back to 2, 3, 4 years. It goes on and on. Nothing but poems, writings, and stuff like that. I think that's awesome. I have nothing but respect and admiration for Lattimore and how he's handled everything after football. He could have crawled up into a ball, had this whole victim mentality, why me, pity party. He didn't do any of that. He said, yeah, this sucks, but I still got a life to live, and there's other things I want to pursue and other things I want to do here. We see it all the time in all these stories we've covered on the channel. These players, these 4- and 5-star recruits that fall off, they go down a dark path, but Lattimore did not do that. And I'm going to clap it up. You know, clap it up for Marcus Lattimore. With what he's doing now with writing and poetry, to Marcus, if you're somehow, someway seeing this video, I'm wishing you the best of luck, my brother. Now, with that being said, I do want to address this because it might get brought up in the comment section because I was thinking about it myself. Well, Matt, how is he funding this lifestyle? Do poets and writers get millions and millions of dollars like football players? And unless I'm misinformed, I don't think they do. But here's what I do know, and this is what's documented. Marcus Lattimore filed a claim on a $1.7 million insurance policy. In other terms here, if Marcus Lattimore, while he was with the 49ers, decided to retire, he'd be paid $1.7 million. And I also believe that's tax-free dollars, which is a huge difference because $1.7 million tax-free is $1.7 million. But $1.7 million tax is about roughly 1.1 million, or what did it say, 1 million. And since Marcus Lattimore retired, he got that money. You want to talk about a good bang for your buck? He took in that policy as a junior at South Carolina, and it cost him around, according to sources, $10,000 to $15,000, and he got $1.7 million. Imagine investing $15K and coming out with dang near $2 million. Unreal, and also very smart of him to do that. As long as he's playing his cards right and he's investing that correctly, he doesn't have to work another day in his life. He also got that $300,000 signing bonus from the 49ers, so in total, right at $2 million. I don't care what any Joe Schmo tries to tell you. If you live within your means and you don't have some luxurious lifestyle, you can live comfortably the rest of your life with $2 million. Let's just say he spends $50,000 a year, which is kind of on the high side. 50,000 times 30, that's only 1.5. And it goes back to what I've said. The key part in all of this is he also has to be investing this money correctly, because if you're investing 1.5, let's just say he has $1.2, $1.3 million, you're going to make anywhere from, what, 20, 30,000 a year? I think he's going to be A-okay and on cruise control the rest of his life. At least I hope so. And by the way, this is also taking into account that he's not making any money currently with his poetry or writing business. I assume he's making some money from that too, and we didn't even talk about that. I know it seems like I'm pocket watching the guy, but really just trying to break this down because it goes hand in hand with our story, because I know people are going to be curious, like, hey, what's he doing now? How is he making money? Going back to his Instagram, though, a lot of people have noticed and pointed out that he looks way different than what he looked like at South Carolina. For reference, here's a picture of him at South Carolina, and here's a picture of what he looks like now. Just like this comment says right here, he is dang near unrecognizable, and he's lost a ton of weight. It's kind of odd, though, because a lot of the people that are writing comments like that, they're trying to make it seem like he's falling off the map and he looks horrible, but I don't think he looks bad at all. Sure, he may grow in his facial hair a little bit and look a little rough, I guess we shall say, and he's not as toned and as buff as he once was, but there's nothing wrong with that. And this is actually quite normal. When people retire out of the NFL, they do lose a lot of weight and they slim down a ton. They lose all that muscle mass. I think he looks fine. It's not like he's insanely scrawny and he needs to eat 4 double cheeseburgers a day. Like I said earlier, he posts all of his writings and poems all over his Instagram. He also posts videos of himself, and I'll show you one of those videos right here. Matt, roll a clip.
You keep on telling me to jump. You keep on telling me to jump, but I'm scared. I'm scared to trust. I've never trusted anything or anybody. God, will you please take my fear away?
Look, I'll just come out and say it because I know a lot of us watching this are thinking it. Yeah, it's a little weird and it's different. However, I think we're all weird in our own way, and I think being normal is boring. And I just thought about this. I couldn't imagine his neighbor looking in his backyard and seeing Marcus Lattimore filming this video. I don't know what he would think, but that's the thing with Marcus Lattimore. He doesn't care what anybody thinks. He's being himself. What a story, though, and at the end of these videos, we discuss whether I think the said player in the video is a winner or a loser. In my books, no question about it, Marcus Lattimore is a certified winner. Winning in this life, to me, isn't about being a top-tier running back at the collegiate NFL level. It's about getting up and working hard every single day and not bowing down to the competition or not bowing down to life. It's relatively simple to me, man. As long as you don't have a victim mentality, and like I just stated, I know it's cliche and corny, but if you're working hard, you're striving for greatness, you're a winner. I don't judge winning solely off of trophies, championships, and first place, and all that other stuff. That stuff does matter, but at the end of the day, it's who you are when you take all that stuff away. Lattimore, from what I could tell, seems like a great person and a great human being, and that's a winner to me. I'm curious. Let me know your thoughts down below. But